Yes, people, yes, people, yes, people. Welcome back to episode 8 of the We Talk Football podcast. It's the first in a series of mental health episodes that we are doing throughout the entirety of November around the theme of Movember. Today, we've got the pleasure of being joined by Kieran Bywater, ex-football player for West Ham and now current financial advisor for football players across various leagues in England. So thanks for coming on, Kieran. How are you doing today, mate?
No worries. Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. All good. Just sort of prepping myself for the next lockdown, really. So yeah, just like everyone else, just cracking on, really.
How's lockdown been for you, mate?
It's been a strange one, to be fair. You know, like I think everyone else, you know, there's been ups and downs of it. But you know, fortunate enough, all my family's well and in jobs still, so we can't. That's the main thing. You've got to just sort of appreciate that at the moments like this. But for myself, difficult. You know what it's like. You know, living in the city centre as well. It's not ideal at times. But yeah, just adapting. You know, doing things like this on Zoom. Just making the most of it, really.
Well, that's the thing. It's just like everyone's trying to have to adapt in their own kind of way, whether it be like trying to connect with family more through Zoom calls. I'm sure people are going to start doing quizzes more now. Now it's the second lockdown.
I'm hoping those quizzes have seen their day, hopefully.
Mate, I'm all quizzed out. I'm done with them. But yeah, Kieran, obviously you're someone I've known for a while. Like James touched on in the intro, you played at West Ham with my brother in the academy, and you're someone that, like, I'm not going to gas you up, but you're someone from like a young age, like you were earmarked as like a future pro. Like you from an early age, captaining the teams, you're scoring a lot of goals from midfield. So I suppose the first question would be, in terms of football, is it something that like came naturally to you? Was it a case that you're from a footballing family? How did you kind of get started, and how did you get scouted for West Ham initially?
Yeah, we've thrown it back quite a while now, but yeah, for me, it was just I was obsessed with it from a young age. You know, I'm from a family that just likes football. You know, my uncle was a scholar at Blackpool years ago. Always just enjoyed football, but no one really played to any capacity. I was just sort of fell in love with it and was obsessed with it. You know, would just constantly be practicing, constantly out playing, and that's just sort of where my love for the game came. And you know, as you practice more, it's like anything, you become better at it. And obviously, from a very young age, then I saw myself being, you know, a lot further down the line than players I was playing with just in the local area. And I started playing for Cambridge when I was a kid, sort of 7-8 years old, and then they got relegated from the Football League, and when I was about 10, I think it was, and they invited a load of scouts to come and watch the games, and I just had, you know, you name it, in that sort of southern area, just every club I sort of went on trial with when I was a kid, sort of bouncing around all these, you know, Arsenals, West Hams, your Leicesters, places like that. When I was, you know, really young, you know, we're going back when I was about 10, and then I decided on West Ham, really, and just cracked on from there.
So in terms of like when you got scouted for West Ham, was it a case of you had a pick of different teams, or was it West Ham was the one that appealed to you most? What kind of drew you to joining West Ham? Because it's not that local to where you're from.
Yeah, no, obviously I'm from quite a rural area in Cambridge, so it's like middle of nowhere. There's not many clubs that are close. You know, West Ham and Arsenal are sort of the closest ones, north of London. So yeah, I remember when I was a kid, it was just going around where I enjoyed playing the most. When I got the feel for the guys you're playing with. Obviously met your brother there. You know, when we were kids, and yeah, I just really enjoyed it at that point. And you know, you're just playing football at the end of the day when you're that age. It's just all about that. So it was just down to me and, you know, what my dad thought was comfortable to drive and that sort of stuff. And yeah, so that's why we chose West Ham, really.
Fair.
I mean, yeah, that's great. So you said that you started at Cambridge, and then when they got relegated, you moved over to West Ham. What was what was life at the academy like at West Ham? Was it much different to being like at Cambridge? Or was it like a massive culture shock straight away?
Yeah, to be honest, it was just like the speed of things when you're a kid. You know, I'd obviously like been playing and it's just a bit slower, etc. But then you're around players at a better standard, and you just start to notice it becoming a bit more serious. You know, as you're getting older, obviously you just go and play, enjoy football at that age. That's all I did, really. But as you go through the academy, it starts becoming actually, you know, you can start seeing players separating sort of ability-wise from the others, and you start knowing, actually, yeah, I've got an opportunity here to, you know, to play and live the dream, really, as you get a few years older in your teenage years. And that's sort of what happened for me, really. Just that mentality switch changed.
Oh wow! So was it everything in general? So obviously it was better. You know, like obviously it was a better academy in general. Did you experience different levels of coaching then? Was it a step up in coaching when you moved up to West Ham, or was it somewhat on a similar level?
It's hard to say that, because I don't think at that age you take too much into it.
Yeah.
You know, you don't. I didn't really. You know, obviously you want to be around better coaches, and they were better quality of coaches. But you know, some of the coaches I had when I was a kid are now first team managers in the Football League.
Oh, wow.
You know, Mark Bonner, who's manager at Cambridge, was my first coach as a kid. So he's gone through the whole way through. So, you know, he's a good coach. You know, I know guys that are playing for him now, you know. So it's one of those where it's hard to get. It's like anything, you know. For me, I was just concentrating on playing football. Best coaching you can get, and then great. But you just feel that intensity change, like I said, as you get a bit older. The coaches demand a little bit more. And, yeah, that was it, really.
Obviously, you touched on like playing unconscious and kind of just playing football because you loved it. Was there like any players that you like idolize, or any players that you like base your game on? Any particular to like the team you supported? Is there anything like that?
Yeah, when I was a kid, honestly, it was Lampard and Gerrard for me, because I was a goal scorer midfielder. Really, that's what I based my game on. And even though I'm a Man United fan, because I was born up here in Manchester, even with the southern accent, it was always Gerrard for me and Lampard, you know. And obviously Lampard went for a West Ham, so it was one of those people that you sort of admired, and they were obviously the peak of their game when I was younger. So those two for me were just, you know, I mean, I was very obsessive with football. You know, I was one of those where, you know, you might get called busy or whatever it was. I was obsessed with it. I'd watch clips, I'd go out and practice, I'd stay extra, I'd be early, you know, all of that stuff. That was just my makeup, and I guess it's not changed in what I do today either. You know, that's just me, and that's just how I am, I guess.
I suppose like with that as well, like you say, get called busy, and I hear that a lot from my brother when he was like playing in the academy. Just a case of, if you're one of these kids that's like attentive and you're staying extra and you're putting in the work, you get called busy. You get like, you're a bit like, you're discouraged from putting in that extra work. Was there like a culture of that within academies?
Yeah, I think there was, to be fair. Now you think of it, you don't do it at the time. I was pretty thick-skinned as a teenager. You know, I didn't really care about what anybody really thought of me. Still to the same at this point, you know. I just was focused on wanting to be a footballer, and that's what it was. And I knew I had ability, but I knew I wasn't, you know, a world beater. You know, I was a good player, but I wasn't, you know, your Raheem Sterling or whoever like that who's got that unbelievable talent. I had talent, but everything I did, I worked on. You know, I was good at set pieces because I worked on it, you know, and I constantly went at it. And that was just how I saw me progressing. That was the only way I was going to progress. And, you know, that's just what was installed in me by my family, I guess, as well, you know.
So that kind of relentless attitude has obviously served you well as well, because you're now thriving in, as a financial advisor. But would you say that having these tendencies early, you know, that instilled from your family, would you say that helped you in the academy? Did it ever, or did it, you know, as Quaker alluded to there, you can say it can help you, but did you ever come across any sort of politics in the club where that, you know, that kind of thrust you into the limelight more than what it should have, or did it hold you back? Or
no, I wouldn't. I would say it's developed me, you know, just as a person and just what I was doing playing, really. There's obviously times, you know, when I was full-time and I was a young pro, and, you know, you've got 2 games in a week and you're out smashing 30 ball free kicks in after training, which is not ideal probably at times, but it was just especially when I've got a sore hip or whatever it was. But yeah, there's a balance to it. You know, you've obviously got to be intelligent with what you're doing and how much you do. But yeah, I think it was definitely something that benefited me going through the system.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a great attitude to have. But yeah, sorry, go on, Quakes.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, obviously we're gonna touch on like life after the academy, but I suppose me and Jamie, we're gonna do this with quite a lot of people throughout the month, and we obviously we've had the insight, but we're kind of fans when it comes to it. So from my point of view, I'd just like to know who's the best kind of player you played with or against? Like who kind of impressed you on the pitch?
Are we talking as youngsters or as like young pros and stuff like that?
Throughout the ages, man. So I know obviously my brother played with some players or played against players at Chelsea that are now pros.
Yeah.
So any players that you played with or against that really impressed you, that stood out?
Growing up, the best player I played with was Leo Chambers. I don't know if you remember him.
I remember Leo.
But, you know, there's loads of lads that are playing that I played with now, but he's one of them that's not playing. He was the best for me. I was just like, he had everything, you know, strong, quick, could play, leader, you know, that sort of thing. It was just one of those players you come up against in training 1v1. You're not gonna have a good time at all, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's, you know, it's one of those. He was probably the most talented growing up through the age groups, and obviously, you know, you get around the first team, you're playing with players then. But yeah, I'd say Leo was talent-wise if we're going through that period. And then our players against, loads, you know, there's Sterling's, Kane's, Carrick's, you know, all of them at reserve level and youth team level, really. So, yeah, take your pick. But I'd always say Carrick probably against when I played in midfield when I was about 18, 19. I was just,
Wow.
He come back from injury and played against us, and it's just like, couldn't get near him. But, you know, there's obviously a lot of talented players in that sort of lineup, you know. At the time, you know, even when you're playing against your Canes and that, when they were youth team reserve players, it's just, they're just another player. Like, I didn't see at the time, this before they've made it, you know, and stuff like that. So it's just another player you're playing against. You don't see it as that. And then all of a sudden, like, a few years on, things change, don't they? So, yeah, I'd probably say Carrick or Raheem Sterling, probably around our age, was the most talented.
Nice. So when you was playing football and you went through the ages, were there any players that kind of had work rate as one of their most redeeming qualities, and then have now gone on to, you know, have careers? For example, you know, looking back at like old Arsenal academies, for example, there was like the year when it was littered with stars, with people like Jermaine Pennant and all these other stars in the team, and the person that went on to have the best career, you could say, was Steve Sidwell, and he was probably the most hard working out of them, but he had the most longevity in his career. Yeah. Is there anyone that you played with that's now playing like in a game in some sort of capacity, and they've, you know, you didn't expect them to be?
I mean, there's players playing that I wouldn't expect to be playing at certain levels, you know. But I'm obviously not gonna
no, of course.
Have a dig at that side of things. But no, I'd say not. Obviously, I expect him to be there. With Josh Cullen, he obviously.
Just to Anderlecht.
But me and Josh both played in midfield together, and, you know, we were good players in our team, and we really pushed each other. You know, we were friends, but we always had that very competitive edge between us. But that pushed us, I think, growing up. When you look back at it, obviously he's gone on to play. He's at Anderlecht now. But yeah, you know, he was a hard worker as well. You know, we both were, to be fair to us, looking back as teenagers and young pros. So yeah, Josh was a real hard worker as well. I'll give him some credit there. So. He is, so.
Well, yeah, like you said, so obviously Josh has just gone to Anderlecht. I'm a West Ham fan, so it's a shame that he never really got a chance to shine at West Ham. But for yourself, what was it like for yourself when you were released for West Ham? How did it affect you, and how did it affect you mentally? Like, was there a support system around you that helped you through that time?
Yeah, but it wasn't from the club. That's
really?
for sure. Yeah, nothing from the club. I've said it many a times. It's been well documented, my exit from the club. My support system was my family. You know, they were there to just pick up the pieces, which is, you know, wrong after I've been at a club for over 10 years and captained every age group up to below the first team, you know, and been training with them. So it was, that was my support system. And there was a few guys outside of football that supported me. And it was a shock to me, and it was very difficult to deal with as a 20-year-old. You know, it was a tough period, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the. Sorry, I was going to say. Yeah, I think that's the part of the reason why me and Quaker really want to shine a light on, you know, the things in football that you don't necessarily see, because, you know, like you said, you captain multiple age groups throughout the years, and then all of a sudden you find yourself not playing football, and you're abandoned by a club you've called home for more than 10 years. There needs to be some sort of level of aftercare for players, especially when you see academy players across the country, you know, taking their lives. Like just last week, Jeremy Whiston. It's just heartbreaking, and it's so horrible that you had to go through that. And fortunately, you had a good support network to help you pick up the pieces. More should have been done by the club, and more needs to be done, I'd say.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. There's got to be a lot more that's done, you know, whether that's through the PFA, etc. You know, there's plenty of praise for players that have had 10, 15 years careers, but, you know, young pros, you're part of a PFA. You know, you've got to get that support, and there needs to be more of a light shone on, you know, individuals that have done well away from football. You know, whether it's 25 they stop playing, or 30 or 35. You know, there's some guys there's a couple of ex-players that are advisors in the country that I know. A guy called Dan Nardiello, he's obviously played a full career in the league. He's retired and doing the same thing as me, but we're at different ages and had different careers completely. But, you know, we can still shine a light on what you can do. The football ends, or whenever it ends, but it doesn't have to be. It's not the end of you. It's the start, you know. And I can relate to it because I was in a dark place myself. And if I hadn't had the family support I did have, or, you know, people to, you know, pick up the pieces, it was a hard time for my family as well. It was, you know, I would have been a figure as well. You know, you can say what it is. You know, I could have been that close, and that's how dark it got for me, to be honest. So when I see stuff with, you know, with Jeremy Whiston, and people talk about it, and I have obviously it's a shocking incident, but I have a bit of a different approach to it, where, you know, everyone thinks, oh yeah, more needs to be done. Well, it's not. Nothing's changing. You know, no one's acting on it. You know, there's no preventative things being put in place. You know, it's just, it's another lad who's got released and got sad and took his own life. No, actually, it's happening again and again. The lad at Man United last year, Jeremy there, and I know there's other players that I've played with or here against that aren't part of that, but have tried to, you know, and it's a shocking thing, because it's young people that have been talented, or, you know, they've got a great opportunity there to go and kick on and do something else if they get the right sort of guidance and support. And I think that's almost one of those as well, where, you know, players that have been around it or different experiences there's definitely opportunities where there can be a guidance, you know, because, you know, there's people in the game, you like it or not, where they probably don't feel like it's their duty to do that, you know, whether it's coaches, you know, where they're coaches and you leave and that's it, you know. I don't really speak to any of mine that I had, and they were worried about, you know, there's a lot more I could say about certain people that are around clubs that have, you know, that haven't spoken out about stuff when they could have, you know, but that's because they worry about themselves and their own families, and to care about other people around them closest to them. But okay, yeah, that's fine, and everyone does that, but still, in my opinion, you've got to speak out and say your opinion and try and, you know, help people that have struggled with things, you know.
I feel like clubs have got a duty of care to players, and obviously when you're young kids, you're being taken out of schools. Like it's not a case of just the American system, which you've had some experience in, where they ingratiate education with sports. It's a case of at the age of like 13, 14, you're being taken out of school and being kind of not brainwashed, but told that football's the only thing. You've got to have a strong support system. I remember my brother, my dad being adamant that my brother wasn't going to do that, and my brother was going to do his A levels. And obviously they offer you a B Tech that you do, but I'm not too sure how stringent it is, how strict it is in terms of you actually pass the qualification. And you're being told from a young age you're going to be the footballer. So within school, everyone's like, you're the kid who plays football. You're going to make it. You're going to make it. And then when you don't make it, I'm not too sure what your feeling of was it, but was it like a sense of shame? Was it a sense of you let people down? What was it that like kind of affected you in the biggest way?
Yeah, probably a bit of that. You know, you look at it, you think, bloody hell, like, who am I? What am I now? You know, and not really anything. I was a young pro, and I felt like I had ability to play in the game, and all of a sudden it was done. You know, that was it. Yeah, a bit of that. It's a bit, you know, you've worked so hard at it and dedicated so much time for it, and, you know, it's not just a couple of years. You know, where people, you know, I know it's difficult now with the climate and stuff, but people leave university and expect a job, or like expect that. Well, I look at it, you know, gone for 3 years. I'd gone from age 8 to 20 and had nothing to show from it. No qualifications, no career, nothing. And then you have to rebuild again. And it's that sense of like your identity as a young person. You've played football, people know you, you know, you go to local shop, they know who you are, especially when I go home, like when you're a young pro. And all of a sudden you're not that person anymore. It's like, what are you offering now, really? And it's just like people do change massively around you, and you're still that person. You know, you're still exactly the same person. You're not getting paid to kick a football around. You know, and that was obviously difficult. Yeah, and you do have a bit of, not shame or embarrassment. You know, that's I wouldn't say that's quite it. It's almost like, it's just, yeah, it's hard to describe it, really. You know, with your family, if you do feel like you let yourself down, but I didn't have that, because I don't think I could have done any more.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think it was necessarily down to me and things like that. And yeah, so I don't have regrets with things.
Well, I think that's I think everything you've just said there is really shining a light on why me and Craig want to do things like this, and getting that kind of insight out there really shines a light on the things in football that aren't the best. So I applaud you for your honesty, and it must have been incredibly hard to go through that at such a young age. But how old were you when you were released? Were you?
So I was end of my contract. So I was turning 20 like the following month when my contract was done. So I was 20 in September, and I got released at the end of the season. So like, yeah, 19, 20. But obviously when you're going on trial and you're looking, then you're a 20-year-old young pro that's been released. It's just your view all of a sudden has changed from being under 21 captain and scoring X amount of goals to then a released player that's just another one with no league experience, you know. And it does change overnight. There's no doubt about it, you know.
I remember it was like a shock to myself when like you got released, because like I say, for me, you were always the person who's going to make it. From like a young age, you were banging in goals from midfield, and like you say, your heroes or the people you looked up to were Gerrard and Lampard. And I feel you're very much in the mould of Frank Lampard, scoring goals. You captained the youth teams, but you kind of took a different kind of step. But a lot of people go through the tiers and they drop down to Championship, League One, League Two. You chose to go to America, so I'd love to hear like your insight into that and what made you choose that path, and what experiences were like in America.
Yeah, so I obviously, when I left West Ham, I was just thinking I'm going to get another club here. It's not an issue, you know. But I got invited to go on trials at, you know, a lot of clubs that were bigger names, you know, more of your like Premier League and Championship reserve sides, etc. Because obviously they knew me in that sort of system. And then I didn't get a contract at some of those clubs. And then when I played in the conference and was going on trial at a few places, playing, and I was hating life, really. You know, I was really struggling after got more rejection, and then, you know, you had to move home. I dealt with my issues through football in the past. You know, I lost a couple of friends growing up, and then all of a sudden football's the issue. And how do you deal with that as a young person? You've got the identity issues, you've got the expectation of, oh, you've got to perform to get to the next level again. And I was just thinking, this is a slippery slope here. Like, I'm 20, 21 soon, and it's like, oh, how am I going to come back up? I'm, like I said, I fitted in a certain style of football, you know, where I played as a midfielder, and I went in the conference and it's like a game of ping pong, you know, and I'm stood in the middle, I'm the net, you know. That was literally what it felt like. And, you know, it was just not the same, and I didn't have the same, it was fading, you know. I couldn't be myself on the pitch. Coaches probably realised that I was just a different person all of a sudden, and that was what was sort of a weight on me. And then I had a conversation regarding going to America with one of my friends who had gone out there earlier. Obviously, wasn't a pro, just did his scholarship, and he was just like, "Mate, you're a switched on lad. Like, come out here, play in the sun. Like, you might enjoy your football again." And I was just like, not sure. Anyway, in the middle of a game in like November, December time, it was lashing down, just awful. Hated it, and I just broke down. I had just an emotional breakdown, and went off, you know, just bawling. And I was done at that moment. My dad was just like, you know, you've got to think what's going to make you happy now, or what you're going to do. And about a month later, I just flew out to the States on like a full scholarship studying business and to play. And I didn't really go out there with intentions to play again, really. I was sat on the plane thinking, how's this happened in 8 months? And yeah, what's around the corner? And it was just one of those. I had to get away for my own sort of well-being, really. That was it for me. You know, some people say, oh, you quit or whatever like that. No, I just made a more calculated decision about what I was going to do. You know, obviously it's a harder route, but that's what route I took, you know.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's heartbreaking, of course, but you said so you ended up going out to the States. What was your experience like out in America playing football? Because you said you went out without the intention of playing, but did you end up playing out there, or
yeah? So I was playing. So I went on the scholarship to play, and then I got banned when I went over because I played a certain amount of professional games. So the first 6 months I was just studying and getting into that, which wasn't a bad transition for me. I just enjoyed myself for a few months, as you do, sort of let my hair down a bit, and then I started playing again. It just wasn't, I was a driven person before I went out there, and then just wasn't the same desire. It was never a desire of mine to play in the States or to be out there. It was to play in England and go through and get better that way in the system. And all of a sudden now you're playing with players that haven't played at elite level. You get frustrated, you get annoyed at things, and the games are easy. You just coasting through games, and it's just becomes like that. But then anyway, I started enjoying it. There were some great people I met, some nice coaches, some guys that have been through similar stuff from me from other countries. And then, we won a national championship in my first season there, which was obviously the best thing that you can do out there, which is straight away won that. And then it just wasn't, it finished, and I enjoyed the night. And then the following week, I was just it's not really tickling my fancy anymore, I was just thinking, don't know if I was done with it or whether it was I need to go to the next level again to just sort of see. And then anyway, I sat down with my coach at the time, and I just said to him, look, I need to go on to try bigger, better things again. I just owe it to myself one more time now. I was 22, 23 at the time. I said, I just need to give it one more try. And I had opportunities to go to some of the top universities in the States to get a degree and look at going in the draft was the plan, because obviously my first year there, I'd attracted a lot of attention for my performances. I went to, he was like, I'll let you go if you go to one of the top sort of 5 universities in the country. So I had offers from then, and then, more stuff went on, which caused me to come back to England,
Oh, really? Yeah. So what led you to going from, the highs of state championship, having a conversation with your coach about potentially going to a top 5 universities, and then coming back to the UK? What then took you from football into your current career as a financial advisor?
Good question. To be honest, it was more of a point where I came back to England, and I whittled through my savings. I couldn't finish my degree, so my business degree was written off. I had no qualifications. I had 4 GCSEs, and I was done with football mentally at that point. After the stuff in the States, I was just I'm done. I could have gone in conference and rattled around there, tried to get up again, but it just wasn't for me. I had decided, I need to just write a line under it and go to something else. So anyway, that's sort of where it became. I was in a dark place again, really. After sort of 2-3 years on, I was just what do I do now? And I had to get out and do something. So I went and worked for my dad's friend, who just has a metal factory, the engineering company. And I just went and knocked at the door, and he was just a bit shocked. And I said, have you got a job? And he was obviously knew me as a footballer from a couple of years back. And he was just yeah, but you're not going to like it. So I just said, I need anything just for my sanity. So while I was looking at other opportunities of what I wanted to do career-wise, I just went there and worked there from 9 till 5, lifting metal in November, December, freezing cold outside night. And then I had a few conversations with St James's Place where I'm at now, and the guy sort of recruits ex-professional sports people to try and get him into it, and said you've got all the right sort of attributes, you're your own boss, you build your company and your business for the future, and it just ticked all the boxes for me. What I had playing football, I realised that was my personality traits, and I needed, if I couldn't have football, which I was never going to love anything as much as I love playing football, I had to replace the mentality behind it of what it was for me, and I had to take control of my future, really. And that's how I got into this, and had to come up with a business plan and go through a lot of interview processes. But I managed to get on at age 23. They paid for me to go through training and qualifications, and then back end of last year qualified as a fully qualified financial advisor. So
wow.
Which is you know, from where I was at, it was quite a big achievement for myself, you know, not having those qualifications. And, you know, I was failing exams, and, you know, people were doubting me and thinking, oh, he's never going to do this, he's not had that. But, you know, I did, and, you know, I was determined to do it. And yeah, that's how I got into this, really. And I wanted to help people. At the end of the day, it feels good, you know.
It just draws back to that relentless mentality you were talking about earlier. You got given an opportunity and you took it with both hands, and, you know, it's no surprise just from hearing you speak for you know, just a short time, that, you know, you will succeed because you have the will to go and succeed. So it's great, and it's a real spotlight on things that you can actually achieve outside of football if you don't play the professional.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's not necessarily just our generation, but I just think, you know, there's a lot of fear of failure now with people. With our generation, there's always that, you know, they don't want to be seen like having, you know, driving a crappy car or doing whatever. You know, when I was working at factory, I was driving like an old Corsa Banger, and I've been playing at Old Trafford 3 years before. And, you know, I was wearing a high vis lifting metal, but I don't think enough people are willing to do that to propel them forwards, you know, to what that teaches you and what that does. You know, those lowest points have taught me a lot more than it did playing at Old Trafford or playing in those reserve games or winning a national title. I learned a lot more about myself in those low points, you know.
I suppose within like what you do now, you encounter like a lot of professionals, whether they be ex or current professional footballers. In terms of like a succession plan, football's a very, very short career, 10 to 15 years if you're lucky.
Yeah.
What's the biggest like issues footballers encounter when it comes to like the financial side of it? Because unless you've got 5-10 mil in the bank, you're going to have to work after football. So what's your best advice? What do you come across the most in terms of footballers who maybe haven't got a succession plan, or what kind of plans do you advise footballers to have after they finish with the game?
It's about realising that, you know, it's going to end. There's an end point coming at some point in the near future. You know, we do, you know, small, short, medium and long-term goals. And I speak to people about, you know, short term, and they'll go through that and they'll think, 6 months or a year. Short term for us, our minimum time's 5 years. Some guys that I know that are 27 now, 5 years time, you're knocking on the door of retirement. And then what position are you for your next career? What are you planning to do? Have you got enough money to, you know, be a pot there to give you a bit of breathing space for a year or two while you try and figure out? You've got to re-identify yourself again. No one's going to care that you've played 300 games in League One when you step out, because they don't, you know. Name me a guy that played in 2004 that played 350 games in his career now. You can't, you know, that no one cares. Like I said, with Premier League players, it's different planning. You've got to, you know, do the right things tax efficiently. You know, you've got a lot more disposable income. But other players, you know, it's going to end. You might be earning, you know, 200, 300 grand a year or whatever it might be, playing in, you know, sort of those middle tier clubs. But that's going to end, you know. People that earn that in other careers or, like, you know, in different industries, they've got that for a long time. You've got that 5-6 years, maybe drop off if you get injured, go to a lower league. And then all of a sudden, you know, then you're on zero. You know, when you retire, you're on zero on your income. And it's about preparing for that. And rather than it being like a cliff edge, it's about being a smoother transition. And that's what I'm trying to help players with. Obviously, my background and network is in football, so, you know, I thought it was the perfect opportunity. And, you know, I'm young, so I'm not going anywhere. You know, there's a lot of guys that are older as financial advisors. You know, I'm one of the youngest, and being able to sit down with guys that, you know, played with or can help them and going through their careers. You know, 5-10 years, I'm still going to be really young in my career. You know, so I can be relatable to them and try and help them the best way I can. You know.
Well, that's great. I mean, as I said, any young footballers will definitely need to hit you up and just seek your advice. I think providing your insight, you know, you are the perfect candidate for the role that you're in. And obviously you've got the qualifications, and now you clearly know what you're talking about as well.
Yeah. So I think that's massive as well. It's getting the right advice, you know, for the right reasons. You know, there's always people that will get advice who they know, but it's having that relatability. It's like anything, you know, if you've been a pilot and you understand that system, and being a financial advisor, you're going to know the ups and downs of that career, you know. So it's the same with this, you know. I didn't have a full career, yeah, I didn't, but I know sort of everything that goes on. Close mates playing still, same, all got the same issues, you know, all have the same issues along the way. So I just don't want to see anyone in the position that I was in, you know, emotionally or financially in the future, you know, because I feel like I would have failed the people around me if I allow that to happen, you know.
For sure, man. Yeah. Obviously, this has been amazing for me and Jamie having this insight, and obviously I've got nuggets from my brother. But like Kieran, your experience from being in the academy to going to America to forging and carving a successful career for yourself after football, obviously shines a light on life after football. And although there might be lows, there are also highs after the game. So, man, we both appreciate you coming on and kind of giving us that insight. Obviously, you're they should follow you on LinkedIn. Yeah, I'm always posting some interesting articles on there.
Yeah, I've got LinkedIn. I've got my Instagram as well. I do a lot of it through that. Sort of a business one, obviously, younger generation. We're on there a lot more, so a lot more of my network, you know. So on there as well.
So I think on Instagram it's Kieran_Bywater. On LinkedIn it's just Kieran Bywater. So yeah, if you're listening to this, give him a follow. And yeah, man, I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on, and yeah, I'm sure we'll speak soon.
No worries. Thanks for having me on, guys. Enjoyed it.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks a lot, Kieran, mate. Appreciate it. So a massive thank you to Kieran for coming on the podcast there. It's really important, especially during Movember, to get some important insight on mental health and shine a light on the darker aspects of football that aren't always concentrated on and you don't see on the glitz and glam of Sky Sports and BT Sports. Talking a little bit about Movember though, a massive thank you to anyone that's actually donated to us so far. We're up to £270, which is just crazy. I wasn't expecting that. But yeah, less than a week, we've raised 270. So a huge thank you to everyone that's donated. Massive thank you to everyone that's still listening to the podcast. As you can see, for about the first time in about 10 years, I am clean shaven. So is Kwaku. He's actually sitting there in a jumper that actually fits him for once as well.
What do you mean? The black Steve Jobs out here. Baby face, those prepubescent tendencies. Yeah, as Jamie said, we are massive thank you to everybody who's donated. You can find the link to our Movember donations in the description below. Make sure you follow us on all socials. Instagram is We Talk Podcast. Twitter is WTF Podcast 90. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Apple Music. Make sure you're locked in for more episodes coming up this month. Cheers, guys.
Support the pod. Thank you, guys. Love as always.